Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
Welcome to part 2 of the season 7 finale episode of the Reputation Revolution podcast. We kicked off this bumper episode last week and we recapped a lot of the guests that we had during the season and had some excerpts and did a little riff so you can find out what you missed during the season, and if this happens to be the first episode that you listen to, this one and the last one, you'll get a really good feel for what we're all about here on the show. So without further ado, this episode is kicking straight off again in a similar fashion to last episode, and it will be all about just recapping the second chunk of guests we had. It was quite a long season, and including some of the excerpts and the highlights, and just to give you a bit of a feel for the quality of the content and the guests and the insights and the ideas and the stories that came out of it. So without further ado, let's rock and roll. In episode 259, we looked at how to build thought leadership focused on impact, not ego. Let's face it, as a leader and a business owner, reputation is your lifeblood. But trust, as we know it, is in short supply. Trust is the social currency of today's digital-first world, but it is in short supply and it is a rare commodity. And research tells us that year upon year, particularly, I follow the Edelman Trust Barometer research, and we do know that trust is in short supply around the world, which is good news, I guess, if you are a mission-driven entrepreneur or professional or a business leader who has the runs on the board and you conduct yourself openly, transparently, do all the right things to build credibility and trust in the marketplace. But it's something I believe that entrepreneurs, leaders need to be intentional about. And as we talk about here often on the podcast, there are many variables involved in building a genuine thought leader brand in the marketplace. Let's be clear, people don't want to be sold something, they want to buy something. And the best way to get someone to seek out the opportunity to buy from you is to position yourself as an unquestionable authority in your space. Someone they would be lucky to have the chance to do business with. Now, this is what PR agency owner Rusty Shelton calls the authority advantage. Rusty is a senior marketing strategist at Forbes Books, a best-selling author and successful entrepreneur. He's the founder and chairman of Zilker Media, an award-winning agency based in Austin, Texas, that builds people-driven brands. It was great to hear from Rusty talk about his book, The Authority Advantage. It was a great conversation, and here are a couple of excerpts.
When we talk about this idea of building an authority advantage, building thought leadership, we are not interested in building a, hey, look how smart you are kind of brand or something that strokes your ego. It's actually completely the opposite. It's really a focus on how can you be the messenger, not the message. So in other words, what we know, again, Gallup put out a study last year, trust in institutions, in businesses, in nonprofits is at an all-time low. If you have a message to communicate and you are leading with the quote unquote corporate brand, your audience is recoiling from that. They are more skeptical than they've ever been of it before. And so the reason for a leader to kind of come out alongside the corporate brand is because the speed to trust for you as an individual, if you have built an authentic, mission-driven brand, is dramatically quicker than it is for the business. And so, Trevor, what I find for a lot of those leaders, the light bulb, if you will, on this is, okay, this is not really about building a, hey, look how smart Trevor is kind of brand. This is about communicating a message and making an impact that we're going to go a lot further, a lot quicker, a lot cheaper if the leader is willing to be the messenger, again, not the message. we find works really well on the micro media side. So anytime as a leader that you're creating content, whether it's a podcast, a book, newsletter, and beyond, I find a lot of leaders, when they go down this road, the initial thought is, all right, I gotta play this formal thought leader. I gotta put the suit and tie on, and I've got to be, what I've got in my head, my audience is looking for as a thought leader. And my encouragement to leaders is actually the opposite is what works. We want you to be more of yourself. We want you to lean into your personality, your interests, your quirks, whatever that niche might be. And the reason why, Trevor, is because we look at ChatGPT coming online. We look at just the amount of just buckets and buckets and buckets of competitive content in whatever your topic area is. The only reason for me to follow you versus all the other people is because I identify with you. You made me laugh. Your personality is something that pulls me in, and I trust you more as a result of you being willing to be vulnerable and being willing to be honest and kind of take me behind the scenes. And so I hope for a lot of people that's empowering. And what I find for a lot of leaders is it is kind of empowering, where it's like, okay, what actually is going to work here is not me trying to be something I'm not. It's actually me leaning more into what makes me different. Whether you like it or not, there is an image being created for you. Do you want it to be a commoditized image of just another operator with something to sell? Or do you want it to be more congruent with who you actually are, which is that mission-driven thought leader, that person that wants to make an impact?
Episode number 261 was a ripper, still is a ripper actually. It was a full-on conversation with Joanna Penn, aka the Creative Penn, Penn. Joanna is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling fiction author as JF Penn. She's also a non-fiction author under Joanna Penn. She's a long-time podcaster and someone who I think embodies everything we talk about on this show. When I say everything, I mean everything. For 14 years, Joanna has blazed a trail, not just in the world of independent publishing, which is her space, but also in the way she's built her personal brand on a global basis, and not just her brand, but the business off the back of her personal brand. That she's managed to continually evolve both professionally and creatively is, I think, testament to her mindset and her attitude, her commitment to lifelong learning, and her willingness to experiment in public and, importantly, share lessons along the way. In short, Joanna is a genuine, credible authority in her field. She's both a domain expert and a bona fide thought leader. She has built a loyal global audience via her podcast and the YouTube channel that she runs. She's active on social media as well as in demand as a public speaker. Her story really is an inspirational one. And if you want to see how, all the lessons, all the tactics, the strategies, everything we talk about here on the Reputation Revolution show, if you want to see them, what they look like in action, take a look at Joanna Penn, the Creative Penn, online, and have a listen to this particular episode 261, and here's a bit of a taste.
Someone emailed me after about 5 years of my podcast and said, could you maybe talk a bit about what you're up to in terms of your writing journey in an introduction? And I was like, why would anyone want to hear from me? I do an interview show. They'll just want to hear from my interviewees about what they do. And then I started the introduction. And as I said before, it's become a really important part of my show. And a lot of people do just come back to listen to the introduction and sometimes listen to the interview. So I think that's another tip for people. If you're starting a podcast or if you're doing any kind of interview format show, make sure there's enough of you, the creator, in it so that people come back. And also because I do news is a difficult one because it's not evergreen, but people will still go back and listen to the backlist. And news to me, because I'm so addicted, is for many people, they don't necessarily know about these things until a lot later. But yeah, people will come back for a regular slot by the host. But what I tend to do is, and I did this when I had a day job, in the morning before going to work, and when I was in Brisbane, the daylight is, you can wake up early. So I would get up at 5, I would do some writing, creating new things in the morning. And then when I got home, I would do the marketing and the podcasting and all of that. And I did 5 years while I had a job of building this business. And now I do the same. So the morning is my creative time. And I'm only doing this interview with you because you're in Australia, but normally my morning time is kind of reserved for the creating new stuff in the world. And that's how I want to portray it to people. So whether I'm writing fiction or non-fiction or a solo episode or creating a course or whatever I'm doing, is creating new stuff in the world. That's kind of my creative time in the morning. And then the afternoon, I'll do interviews like this. Usually I'll do my email, I'll do my, coming up to month end, I'll do some whatever I need to do for my accountant, and I'll do all of that kind of thing. And then in the middle, I also do exercise. I think this is really important too, is you have to be healthy physically. One of the biggest problems with the whole working from home, having your own business and all of this.
Episode 263 was such a fun interview with Chris Ward, and we looked at how to leverage your time and resources while building your personal brand. But our discussion was we really got fired up, and in fact we just kept the tape rolling, and we'll look at the next episode as well, 264, where we took a different tack. So this was really a two-parter. So episode 263 was part 1, and this was really about how can we make time work for us? So as you know, you'd be no doubt aware, building a credible thought leader brand in the marketplace takes serious time and effort. Let's not shy away from that. But how can we manage our energy to give us the headspace required to come up with original thoughts, to dig deeper into our ideas so we can share them with the world? How can we become more effective in our work so we can spend more time creating content and doing public speaking and interacting with our audience on social media, online and offline? Chris Ward has the answers. She is the author of the book Win the Hour, Win the Day, and she also has a podcast of the same name. As I said, we kept the tape rolling, and I then changed tack with Chris to find out more about her story. And this ended up being episode 264. We called it Behind the Scenes, how Chris Ward found her voice, scored 400 podcast guest interviews, grew a podcast with 1,000 5-star reviews, plus TikTok, YouTube, and more. Probably the longest title of a podcast episode of all time, that one. But the key with this part 2 is that when I was doing my research for my interview with Chris, I was really impressed with how well she was building her own professional online presence. And I got to tell you, her face was absolutely everywhere when I was doing a Google search. So I just, that's what I was saying. I wanted to cover off the win the hour, win the day, the productivity side of things, which was episode 263. But then, make it a two-parter, because there was definitely another story there that I wanted to unpack. And that's what episode 264 is about. This is Chris's story from returning to her business after the passing of her husband, through to finding her voice on social media, and becoming what she calls bold-faced. We included growing her podcast with all of those, 1,000 plus 5-star reviews, writing a book, as well as, a behind-the-scenes peek at her, I think, her incredibly successful podcast guesting strategy. And so it was just a really, an open discussion on her story and where she's come from, what she's done, how she's doing it, and she held nothing back. Chris also walked us through her struggle to sharpen her point of view through her content, and on how she laid out how she became featured on over 400 award-winning podcasts, radio and TV shows throughout the world. So the theme of this second discussion, I think, really is a perfect collision of owned media, earned media and social media. And as you know, that's something we talk about here often on the Reputation Revolution. So it was great to get Chris back on the show for this second episode. So here are a few snippets just to give you a feel for the energy and the content of my discussion with Chris Ward.
Apparently we make like 35,000 decisions in a day, and that could just like coming from everywhere. That's not counting work, right? So one of the biggest mistakes people make if we lean into the energy management for a brief moment is they start their day with email. So you jump in there and your brain's going in all different directions, and outside forces are dictating what you're going to do. Like somebody outside your business is sending you on errands. And so what you really want to do is you want to do the work that requires the most attention or focus first thing in the morning. So when I wrote my book, Win the Hour, Win the Day, you know, the old me back in the day would have been like, oh, I'm going to write this book, and so I'm going to try to burn through my work really quickly, and I'll do that this afternoon when I'm finished everything around 3. And 3 turns into 7, turns into 9, turns into midnight, turns into, oh, you know what? I'm tired. Tomorrow I'll write twice as much, right? So what I did was, it was the first hour of every day. And then you really almost have to make a choice. Am I not going to do this today? Like, it's kind of in your face. You can't sort of sabotage it gently. You have to really, like, you know, be honest with yourself. So that's the first mistake, is people are tied to their emails when it comes to energy management. You have more ideas than you can implement. And that's one of my pet peeves, is priorities and goals. What the heck is a goal going to do for you, right? It's like saying you can have a goal, whatever. You know what? I can have a goal. You could say, Chris, I'm going to have my goal is to write a book this year. Great. So how's that broken down? Like people used to say that to me when I first had a business, and it made me nuts. Well, you should set a goal. I set that goal and I broke it. Like nothing happened 17 times because I'm working to midnight. You know, it's like me saying I have a goal to be in the Olympics next 4 years. Great. Where's the strategy? Where's the plan? And your priorities, listen, that just makes you stressed out. List your priorities and list this and list that. No. The way we do it is we just keep taking things off your plate and show you that you don't need to do this. And we put an infrastructure in place so somebody on your team can follow the super toolkit. It's done perfectly every time. You know, it's not a big deal. So all that running around making lists and priorities and setting goals, it's more busy work, and all it does is stress you out. Like, oh my gosh, I want to write a book, I want to do this, I want to be speaking. How am I going to do? Like, then you just get yourself all ramped up, right? So I think that's counterproductive. We just keep lightening your load and giving you clarity and more ability to focus, and then you get really amazing results and start achieving goals that you didn't even think you would dare to dream of. Other thing too, I'm still struggling with a little bit is I'm a very positive person, and also I'm Canadian, so we're polite. The joke is if you step on our foot, we'll say sorry, right? So polite, and I'm very positive, and so then I also have to learn that you can be positive, but I have to say some controversial things in my videos or online, or I'm no different than anybody else, right? So, you know, we're coming out more about content about. One of the people on my team were like, okay, here's a good header for video. Why outsourcing agencies are robbing you. Well, here's the thing. They charge the client $8 and then they pay the outsourcer $4. And then they have these long-term contracts. Now, in theory, that's not robbing you. They have a business and their profit's in the middle. But the outsourcer is losing money, and the client is paying more than they need to. And they're like, this would be a great title, Chris. And I'm like, okay, because I don't want to judge another company. I'm not naming them. I'm just saying the outsourcing agencies that are popping up all over the place are very expensive, and they also don't set you up with systems and process. So you hire somebody and it won't work out. And if you end the contract, there's a whole bunch of problems with it. But for me to be bold-faced and say, it's too many words for me just to explain what I said to you. So here I am qualifying it, softening it, and explaining it. And nobody has 5 minutes for me to politely walk them down this path and explain it. So I have to say, hey, they're robbing you. Here's what the problem is. They do this, that. And I really struggle with that still, because I want to be positive. I don't want to be harsh, but people need the information concise and tight. And I would say that too if I was speaking to you one-on-one, but yet putting it in a blog, I'm like, ooh, I want to soften it and explain it. So you're right. People need to hear what your thoughts are, or you're no different than anybody else.
Such a great discussion with Chris Ward. That was episodes 263 and 264. In 266, we chatted with Adam Robinson, who's the founder of retention.com, all around building a case for why business owners need to get serious about building their personal brand. And this, I reckon this is a pretty meaty topic, because there's a lot of, maybe you're listening, maybe this is you, but there are a lot of business owners and leaders and entrepreneurs who should be building their personal brand, and they should be creating content, and they should be on social media, and should be doing all the things we talk about here on the show, but they're not. And so it was great to get someone who is in this position, who has, in air quotes, seen the light, and then to hear his story, and his journey is only just beginning. And that's why this was such a really interesting interview with Adam, because it wasn't that long ago he was doing nothing, absolutely nothing. Here he is, a tech entrepreneur, and he wasn't even on social media. And as I said, he saw the light. He is actually someone who's at the start of their personal branding journey and building it from the ground up, but he is making ground quickly. Adam believes that building your personal brand as a founder is a simpler and smarter strategy than trying to grow your company's profile right out of the gate. And so in this chat, he was really open, and he revealed why he's doubling down on video content, and discusses how he manages his social media activity day to day. So a bit of a behind the scenes look, I suppose you could call it, a peek into someone's personal branding journey. As I said, he wasn't doing anything that long ago, and now he's doing a lot of the things. So it's a great story and a great insight into the mindset of an entrepreneur who's out there building a solid professional personal brand and doubling down on it. Here's a quick excerpt.
I also believe in the power of video. I just think it's the most incredible thing, that you can record something once, and you're going to record something every day.
Yep.
And you can get people to watch you. Like, I think it is hypnotic, almost irrespective of what a head is saying. If you watch someone every day say even somewhat intelligent things.
Yep.
Right. Like it just hypnotizes people. So, but this was unproven for me. And people were not advising me to do this by any means, but I was like, I'm going to see if I can create a daily video series, and it turned into these like 3 to 5 minute videos of me just like spouting off lessons that I have learned or am learning, and things I screwed up and things we did well, and like all that stuff. And then the most ambitious thing was, I was like, it's like this notion that like all of a sudden I woke up and I'm like, well, I think we could be $1 billion company like quickly. Like, the product worked and like the market was big enough or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to make it. I asked one of my buddies who started a media company in New York called Thrillist, like back when he was 20 years old. He's 42. It was like, it's this big media property now. And I was like, what if I made a show that was a weekly docuseries, 10 minutes long each episode, about me trying to create a $1 billion startup over the course of a year? Do you think that would be interesting? He's like, I think it'd be unbelievable. And like, I got the girl to do it for you. Like, she's great, director, showrunner, like whatever. So I'm making this weekly docuseries also, like in addition to all this. So my point is, this is like 0 to infinity in like, I'm not saying do all of this stuff, but like, I'm so deeply in it at this point. And I cannot tell you how about it is. It is opening doors that I didn't know existed before.
Terrific stuff. Creating your own docuseries. I love the idea. I love the doubling down on video, and I'll be interested to see the results that come from Adam's endeavors in this area. Now, coming to the end of, or edging towards the end of season 7, and in this recap bumper episode, at episode 268, I spoke with Nina Thomas, and we discussed the who, what, and how of building strategic relationships. And so this was interesting because I guess there are so many activities that go into building a credible thought leadership positioning in the marketplace. The activities such as creating content, being on social media, speaking on stage, being in the media, they can all do wonders for our profile and our reputation. But sometimes it's the relationship side of what we do that can have the most impact. And Nina knows this all too well. She founded Harmonic Advisory in 2012 with a goal of helping businesses grow and successfully implement key projects by ensuring their leaders foster the right relationships. Nina has worked with thousands of executives at the highest levels of some of Australia's and the world's leading companies, including PwC, GE, ANZ, Deloitte, and here in Melbourne, the Victorian Government. With over 25 years' experience, she has seen firsthand the impact strategic relationships and high-value networks have in helping businesses grow, implement major projects, and achieve successful business outcomes. Again, we talk about lots of things on the show around content and media and speaking and all the stuff, those things. But relationships sits at the heart of pretty much everything. And so it was great to be able to unpack this topic with Nina. Here's an excerpt.
Basically, it comes down to, well, who do you know and who do you need to know? So shifting the needle on those transactional relationships, reaching out to the people you don't know, but primarily figuring out who you need to know and then working on a system that kind of helps you build engagement with those people. And sometimes it's just one cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But ultimately, most people know that they're feeling isolated, they're overwhelmed, they might be under siege at the office, and they don't know where to go. So they're going, well, I've been told, I've been promoted, I've been told I need the relationships to get me to the next level. And they're like, well, I don't know how to do that. So, I know people, but I don't know how to go and, talk to the CEO of a certain organisation or the head of another business. I don't know where to be visible. So that's the kind of matrix of it, is how do you help them figure out what that strategy is, help them figure out who's who, and then I do something called a visibility plan, so that then gets them into the market.
Alrighty, as we know, there's lots going on in the world of podcasting. Podcasts, as we know, can be a great owned media platform for entrepreneurs and thought leaders, but they do take a bit of work. I'm a cheerleader for podcasting, but I can tell you now, they do take work. How much work and what are the challenges people in the podcasting trenches are currently facing? Well, I decided to find out. So in episode 269, we get the lowdown from Bea Abalti, and she is the founder of Bear Forward Podcast Solutions, which helps small business owners who want to start a podcast or they already have one and they want to grow their audience. More specifically, I got Bea on the show because she had just finalised a survey of business owners who do produce a podcast, and I wanted to chat to her about the findings of that survey, just to get a good picture of what's happening out there in podcasting land at this very minute. So we chat about the survey and the insights it revealed, plus we get into a bit of a broader discussion about podcasting generally and some of the things to look out for if you're thinking of embarking on a podcast project now or in the future. So if that's you and you're interested in podcasting and what it can do for you and your personal brand and your business, then you might be interested in episode 269 with Bea Abalti, and here is a bit of a taste.
Episodes in the bank in advance will relieve a bit of stress as well, because you've got something there in case of. But also for people starting, I'd say you'd need a few episodes. You need to release, when you launch your podcast, it needs to have a few episodes already on there, because people will want to consume more than just one episode to make up their mind whether they want to continue with you or not. So I would advise for someone starting to have several episodes already there, ready to release, at least 2 or 3.
In episode 270, the tables were turned. The tables were turned, and rather than asking the questions as I do week in, week out, I was the one who got grilled in this particular episode. It was entitled Becoming Your Own PR Machine, Demystifying PR and Making It Work for Your Personal Brand. And doing the grilling was my partner in podcasting crime, Brendan Keogh. Brendan is often on the show with me when we dissect previous episodes that I've done, and we do a lot of recapping throughout each season as well. And so the tables were turned, and I chatted all about, I got deep into, it's probably my most expansive interview actually, on public relations and how to make it work for your personal brand. Here are a couple of excerpts, and the first little snippet really talks about what the interview with me was all about. I kind of went into host mode, I think, at that point. But basically, I've created a marketing communications pyramid, and I unpack that and then outline where PR fits. But have a listen to this, a couple of excerpts, and you'll get a good feeling for what I chatted about in episode 270. What we'll cover today is the broader marketing landscape and what that looks like. And that is contained in this pyramid structure. So this is your marketing communications pyramid. And then we'll tease out all the elements of PR that go with it. Now, there are grey areas, and I don't want to get into too many semantics, but this is obviously, this is my philosophy, the way I see things. And for my sins, I've worked in media, public relations, marketing communications. I've been involved in sponsorships and partnerships and content for many years, and social media from the early days. I've taken courses in direct marketing going back a number of years. I've taken courses in advertising. I've tried to see the big picture at all times. And so and having dealt with probably 1,000 clients over the journey, and done a lot of articles and written books and interviewed people on the podcast. This is a what's the word? The encapsulation of all that thinking, connecting the dots. The culmination is the word I want. Encapsulation is not a bad word as well. Yeah, well, you build your base 365 days a year, and that does the heavy lifting. So if, today people are going to check you out, they're not going to ring you. If you're in B2B especially, they're not going to ring you, like they're going to do if you're in B2C. They'll look at your reviews of your business, or people are going to check you out before they do business with you. They're going to, if it's on a professional basis, it's going to be LinkedIn. People are going to check you out. If someone's going to interview you or consider you for a podcast interview, they're going to check you out, even if whether you're pitching or not, whether you've come to them. If there's a journalist puts out on Twitter and says, oh look, I'm interested in talking about an expert about such and such, and someone says, oh, speak to Brendan, that person, that journalist is going to check you out. And what do they find? And what they find do the professional you justice. So this is where content and owned media channels sit at the bottom, and social, because again, they're other channels. You don't own those channels because anything can happen, but you control the content that goes out on it. And that's how you can also reach out to journalists and influencers and build your network and your online community as well. So it's a way to amplify. So, if you're doing all of those things together, and as you know, Brendan, when you're doing owned media, you're promoting it through social, you're talking with other influencers who might turn into earned media opportunities for you, blah, 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 blah. Everything's connected. All of those three things. If you're not connecting owned, earned, and social, you're wasting your time. Well, you're not wasting your time, potentially, but you could be doing a heck of a lot better. So that brings us to an end of season 7. This is the final episode of season 7. We're going to take a short break and then come back, hopefully bigger and better than ever before. Hope you enjoyed parts 1 and 2 of this bumper episode, just basically recapping season 7. And I look forward to you continuing your journey with us here on the Reputation Revolution when we come back for season 8. Until then, stay well.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?